You hit the number. 2 commas, right where you always said it would be. And you felt absolutely nothing. You checked it twice. Closed the app, opened it again, because for a second you figured it hadn't loaded right. It had. The number just sat there. Quiet. A little smug, almost. You waited for the thing everybody promises. The exhale. The moment your shoulders drop and something in your chest finally lets go. It didn't come. You made coffee. You stood at the counter and you drank it, and it was just coffee. There's a story you'd been telling yourself for years, that when you got here, you'd feel it. That the weight you'd been carrying since you were young would lift, and you'd know, right down in your gut, that you were finally okay. You'd earned the feeling. You'd done the work. 12 years of it, some of it ugly. And now the number was real and the feeling wasn't anywhere. So you did what you always do. You looked for the mistake. Maybe you'd counted wrong. Maybe there was a fee, a lag, something owed that hadn't hit yet. Because a person doesn't work that long for a moment that just passes. But there was no mistake. The math was clean. The math was never the problem. You sat down at the kitchen table, the one you've had since before any of this, and you looked at the number one more time. And here's the part nobody warned you about. Somewhere under the numbness, so quiet you almost missed it, was something that felt a lot like grief. You didn't understand it yet. You wouldn't for a while. But you knew this much. You'd been chasing this number your whole adult life, and now that you had it, you had absolutely no idea what it was supposed to have done for you. Rewind. There was a diner, years back. The kind with the vinyl booths gone soft at the seams and coffee that tasted like the pot it lived in. You were sitting across from a friend, and you were broke in the specific way that makes you loud about the future. You'd figured something out that week. A plan. A real one. You grabbed a napkin. You did the math right there in pen, spilling a little where the paper caught. Save this much. Hold it this long. Don't touch it. And at the end of it, there's a number. You wrote the number down and you tapped it with the pen and you said, out loud, "That's the one. I get there. I'm free." You believed it completely. Not free like rich. Free like done. Like you'd never have to feel the thing you felt as a kid again, watching your mom count the same $40 twice before she believed it was there. That napkin number wasn't about a house or a car. You knew that even then. It was about never being scared of the mail again. You kept that napkin for a while, lost it eventually. Didn't matter. The number was burned in. For 12 years, that number was the thing at the end of the hallway. Every hard call, every no, every early morning, you measured against it. It made the sacrifices make sense, and it worked. That's the strange part. The number did exactly what you asked it to do. But here's what you're only seeing now, standing on the other side of it. The number on that napkin was never the goal. It was a placeholder, a stand-in for a feeling you never actually named. You'd written down a dollar amount because a dollar amount was something you could count. The feeling underneath it? You never wrote that down. You didn't have the words for it back then, and you built 12 years on top of it anyway. The first real progress was almost embarrassing. Not a windfall, not a big break. Just a transfer that cleared, small enough that saying it out loud would have made you sound like you were bragging about nothing. But it held. And the next month, another one. And the discomfort of setting that money aside, the little pull every time it left the account, you told yourself that was temporary. That was the story. Grind now, feel it later. The knot in your stomach was just the price of admission, and once you got to the number, the knot would let go on its own, so you leaned into the discomfort, wore it like proof you were doing it right. You skipped things. You drove the same car past the point of pride. You watched people your age move up and out and buy the life, and you sat on your hands because you had a napkin and a number and a promise you'd made yourself in a diner. There's a certain kind of person who can do this, who can hold a line for years with nothing to show for it but a spreadsheet that only they find beautiful. You were that person. You got good at waiting. And the thing you were waiting on, the whole time, wasn't the number. It was the day the waiting would be over. You had those two things fused together in your head so tight you couldn't see the seam. Hit the number, stop the ache. One thing, same thing. They were never the same thing, but you wouldn't find that out for another decade. For now, the math was climbing, slow and boring and real, and you kept your head down and told yourself it was almost time. After a while, the whole thing ran itself. Automatic transfers on the 1st and the 15th. Money you never saw, moving to places you rarely looked. A boring machine you built once and then mostly forgot about. From the outside, nothing changed. Same you. Same haircut, same lunch, same car with the sun starting to eat the paint on the hood. That was kind of the point. Nobody knew. Currently, about 1 in 3 American workers has less than $1,000 set aside, and you looked exactly like the other two. You liked that, a little. The quiet of it. You met with an advisor twice a year. Ellen. Sharp, unimpressed by almost everything. The kind of person who'd seen enough money come and go to stop being moved by any of it. She looked at your accounts once and called your setup deliberately uninteresting. She meant it flat, as a description. You took it as the best compliment you'd gotten in years. The years stacked up. And somewhere in there, you started to notice something you didn't have a word for yet. The number was moving faster than your life was. The account grew on its own now. Some months it added more than you did, without a single decision from you. And meanwhile, your actual days. The coffee, the drive, the same 3 people you talked to. Those stayed exactly the same size they'd always been. You were becoming 2 people. One of them was getting closer to the number every month, quietly, mechanically. The other one was just living. And those 2 people were drifting apart, and you couldn't feel it happening. You told yourself it wouldn't matter, that the day you crossed the line, the 2 of you would snap back together and you'd finally be whole. You believed that the way you believe things you've never tested. You were maybe a year out now, close enough to taste it, and you thought the hardest part was behind you. You had no idea the hardest part was the part where you got exactly what you asked for. And then it did. You got exactly what you asked for. The transfer posted on an ordinary Tuesday, no alert with a horn on it, no confetti, just a line on a screen that read a little higher than the line above it. You were standing in your kitchen. The light was off. It was late, and everyone you might have called was asleep, and half of them wouldn't have understood the number anyway. That was the first crack. You'd spent 12 years building something you couldn't really show anybody. The people who loved you didn't speak this language. The people who did speak it weren't people you loved. So you stood there, alone, holding the biggest thing you'd ever done, and there was nobody in the room. You thought about calling Ray. Your friend from the old days, the one you'd sat with at 100 kitchen tables the year he almost went under. You hadn't handed him a check. You'd handed him $30,000 worth of Saturdays instead, teaching him the boring machine one piece at a time, because money without readiness doesn't build anything. It just speeds up whatever's already there. Ray would get it. But it was late, and some part of you knew that even Ray couldn't stand where you were standing. There are rooms nobody gets to walk into with you. This was one of them. You looked at the number that was supposed to be the end of the story, and it didn't feel like arriving. It felt like something was quietly leaving the building. Something you'd lived with so long you'd stopped noticing it was there. You just couldn't tell yet what it was. So why did it feel like losing something? You started pulling it apart in the days after. Slow, the way you take apart anything you're scared to break. What did you actually think this would fix? Because you'd told yourself 2 things for 12 years, and standing here, both of them were coming loose. The first was that the discomfort was temporary. The knot in your stomach, the waiting, the wanting. You'd sworn it was the price of the climb and the number would pay it off. But the checking stopped and the knot didn't. You caught yourself doing the old math on nothing, bracing for a bill that wasn't coming. Your body hadn't gotten the memo because the fear was never actually about a shortfall. The second thing was that hitting the line would make you feel different. whole, snapped back together. You didn't feel different. You felt like the same scared kid, just with better numbers around him. And that's when it started to turn over in you. The $40 your mom counted twice. You'd been trying to out-earn that memory your whole life. You thought if you got far enough away from it, it couldn't reach you. But you'd built a machine to escape a feeling, and the machine worked, and the feeling was still in the car with you. You had the money. You'd always have the money now. What you didn't have was the thing you actually went looking for. And for the first time, you were starting to suspect the number had never been able to carry it in the first place. Here's the thing you finally understood, standing in a kitchen with more money than you ever thought you'd hold. The goal was never a number. It was never 2 commas. It was never the napkin. Those were just the only shape the real thing could take back when you were young and scared and didn't have the words. What you actually wanted was to feel safe, to feel like the floor wouldn't drop, to feel like you had permission to stop bracing. You'd been a kid who watched money come up short, and you decided, quietly, that you'd never live inside that feeling again. And the only tool you had was a dollar amount. So you chased the dollar amount for 12 years, thinking it was the same thing as the safety. It wasn't. It was never going to be. That's why the discomfort didn't lift. That's why clearing the number felt like a loss. The striving had become who you were. The waiting was the thing keeping the old fear at bay. As long as you were climbing, you were doing something about it. The day you arrived, you had to put the climbing down. And underneath it was the scared kid, still waiting to be told he was okay. No number tells you that. No number ever has. The money was real. It just couldn't do the one job. It just couldn't do the one job you'd hired it for. Nobody warned you that the finish line and the fear live on 2 different maps. You can cross one and never touch the other. You didn't fail. You just found out what the money was for. And it wasn't for this. You went back to a diner. Not the same one. That one's gone. But close enough. Vinyl booth, bad coffee, a napkin under your hand. You didn't write a number this time. You sat there and you did the harder math, the kind you can't do in pen. You named it, quietly, to yourself. The actual thing. Not the dollar amount that stood in for it for 12 years. The thing under the thing. Safety. Permission. The right to stop bracing. That one you can't automate. There's no transfer on the 1st and the 15th that moves you closer. You have to build it the slow way. The same way you built the account, except nobody can see this one either, including you, most days. The number's still there. It'll keep growing, boring and quiet, doing what you built it to do. But it's not the thing at the end of the hallway anymore. It never should have been. You drank your coffee. It was just coffee. And for the first time, that was okay. The kid who counted the $40 is still in there. He always will be. You're not trying to out-earn him anymore. You're just trying to sit across from him and tell him the truth. So here's the question. Before you go chase your next number, what are you actually trying to feel? And are you sure a number can hand it to you?